The ocean waves rocked and pushed a strange object floating on the surface. From afar, it looked like a rotten log, but as they got closer, fishermen made a horrifying discovery. It was the severely decomposed body of a woman. On October 8, 2003, a mysterious case began with this terrifying find in waters about 5-6 kilometers off the coast of Cape May, New Jersey. Investigators quickly arrived at the scene. As they approached the body, they noticed an unusual detail: a stone crab clinging tightly to the inner thigh of the corpse. This was not a normal find, as stone crabs are creatures that live in the deep ocean floor. Its presence suggested that this body had sunk to the bottom of the sea at some point before floating to the surface. The autopsy revealed disturbing details. A large metal chain was wrapped around the victim's ankle, while tape was tightly wound around her feet and hands. These signs indicated that this was not a natural death. The victim had been brutally murdered. Police determined that the perpetrator had tried to conceal their crime by dumping the body at sea, but they did not expect the body to surface and be discovered. In a case like this, identifying the victim is the first and most important step. However, this became extremely difficult as the body had been submerged in seawater for too long. Fingerprints, one of the most effective identification methods, had become wrinkled and deformed to the point where traditional fingerprinting techniques could not be used. Faced with this challenge, forensic experts had to use a special and sophisticated method. They tied string around the finger joints of the corpse, then injected a saline solution into the flesh underneath. This process helped inflate the shrunken fingertips, allowing them to obtain fingerprints clear enough for identification. It was a task that required patience and high skill, but eventually yielded results. When the fingerprints were processed through the identification system, a name emerged: Kimberly Holton, 16 years old. This young girl had been reported missing in Dover, Delaware, about 65 kilometers from where the body was found. Kimberly's short life was revealed, and the story behind it was heartbreaking. Born to a drug-addicted mother, Kimberly had endured a difficult and deprived childhood. The girl's life only had a glimmer of hope when child protection organizations intervened. 2 years before her death, Kimberly was taken in by the Machette family as a foster child. This seemed like it would be an opportunity for her to have a better life, but reality turned out differently. On September 30th, 2003, 8 days before the body was discovered, Kimberly did not show up at school. This worried her foster mother, Lorraine Machette, who decided to report her daughter missing. Lorraine said Kimberly had a history of running away for a few days and then returning, but this time seemed different. The girl did not come back, and fear began to creep into everyone's minds. When investigating deeper into Kimberly's life with the Machette family, police uncovered many complex issues. It seemed the relationship between Kimberly and family members was not smooth. Conflicts and tensions had simmered for a long time before she went missing. The autopsy found no clear signs of trauma that could explain the cause of Kimberly's death. However, the medical examiner discovered she had suffered severe head trauma, apparently from falling from a significant height. This detail raised many questions about what had happened to Kimberly in the final hours of her life. Meanwhile, the strongest physical evidence investigators had was the metal chain wrapped around the victim's ankle. This was no ordinary chain. Each link was stamped with special numbers. These numbers became an important clue, leading investigators to a hardware store not far from where Kimberly lived. At the store, the manager helped police trace information about the chain through the computer system. They discovered that someone had purchased a similar chain just 1 day after Kimberly went missing. Not only that, but at the same time, the buyer also picked up a padlock and some cement blocks, a suspicious combination under these circumstances. The timestamp on the purchase receipt allowed authorities to quickly identify the corresponding surveillance video footage at the checkout counter. In this video, they saw images of 2 men making the transaction. However, the video quality was poor, the image was distorted, and the payment was made in cash, all factors that made it more difficult to identify the 2 men. Undeterred, police decided to release images of the 2 suspects to local media. They hoped the public might recognize and provide useful information. This decision quickly yielded surprising results. In a short time, the police hotline began receiving numerous calls. Many people recognized one of the two men in the video as Robert Brothers. Even more surprisingly, Robert himself called the hotline. He admitted to accompanying a man named Jacob Jones when he bought the chain, but denied any involvement in the crime. Robert claimed, Jacob said the items were purchased for weightlifting purposes. When police asked Robert to speculate on why Jacob might have harmed Kimberly, he gave a name, Heather Nasakadis. Heather was not only a young girl fostered with Kimberly, but also Jacob's girlfriend. This information opened up a new line of investigation, revealing a complex web of relationships and potential motives. To learn more about the relationship between Kimberly and Heather, police approached Kimberly's close friend. This friend revealed that the relationship between the two girls was very tense. It seemed Heather was jealous of Kimberly's good looks, creating an atmosphere of confrontation between them. When questioned, Heather admitted that she and Kimberly had conflicts, but she described them as normal squabbles between sisters. Heather talked about how they often borrowed each other's clothes without permission, but insisted these things weren't enough for her to harm Kimberly. With tearful eyes and a trembling voice, Heather cried out to investigators, "I swear I don't know what happened to Kim. I don't know if Jacob had anything to do with this. I don't know anything about this. All I know is I'm completely innocent." However, Heather also revealed a noteworthy detail. Kimberly had once mocked Jacob. Police considered the possibility that this could be a motive for murder. Jacob, 20, was a sophomore at the University of Delaware with excellent academic records and no criminal history. He was also a licensed pilot and instructor at Dover Air Force Base, frequently renting planes to fly himself. The image of an outstanding student and talented pilot seemed inconsistent with the profile of a murderer. On October 17, 2003, Jacob was interrogated by police. During the interrogation, he admitted to buying the chain, padlock, and cement blocks, but still insisted they were used for weightlifting. However, Jacob's story began to show inconsistencies when he couldn't explain where those items were now. Nevertheless, Jacob did not change his statement and requested to see a lawyer. Police continued to dig into Jacob's recent past. His supervisor at the Air Force Base revealed that in recent weeks, Jacob had frequently been late or absent from work and seemed very agitated and angry. These behavioral changes coincided with the time frame of the crime. An important clue was discovered when police checked Jacob's flight records. On the night of September 30, 2003, the very day Kimberly went missing, Jacob had flown a Cessna aircraft, leaving the base at 11:45 p.m. and returning 2 hours later. This led investigators to hypothesize that Jacob may have used this flight to dispose of Kimberly's body. They speculated that an accomplice may have helped Jacob move and secure the body onto the plane before it was dropped from the air into the sea. This hypothesis also explained the victim's severe head injuries, possibly caused by the fall from a great height. While the investigation was progressing, an unexpected and tragic development occurred. On October 23, 2003, Jacob's father reported to police that his son had committed suicide by gun in his bedroom. Jacob's death was not only a huge shock, but also brought an important turning point in the case. Before deciding to end his life, Jacob had confessed to his parents that he and a friend named Michael Keyser, 23, had killed Kimberly. Jacob explained that Kimberly was causing a lot of problems in the foster family, especially with girlfriend Heather, and he felt compelled to fix the situation. This confession confirmed the suspicions of the police and opened up a new line of investigation. Michael Keyser, mentioned by Jacob, was a former security guard at the local racetrack where Jacob had also worked. The two only knew each other through work, were not close, and rarely socialized outside of work hours. Michael's involvement in the case came as a big surprise to investigators. Immediately after Jacob's suicide, police quickly arrested Michael on October 24th. However, tragedy continued to unfold as Michael also attempted suicide with his shoelaces in the jail cell. Fortunately, he was saved just in time. When he regained consciousness, Michael confessed to the entire incident. He recounted that on the evening of September 29, 2003, Jacob had asked him to pick up Kimberly and take her to a motel to help resolve issues with Heather. Police later found a motel receipt dated September 30th in Jacob's dorm room, somewhat confirming Michael's story. Michael continued to recount the horrifying details of that fateful night. According to his statement, when Kimberly went to the bathroom, Jacob suddenly said he wanted to kill her and asked Michael to help murder and dispose of the body. I said he was crazy. I didn't want to be involved. I wanted to leave. But he said if I didn't help, he would kill me, Michael recalled with a trembling voice. Under Jacob's threat, Michael reluctantly participated in the brutal act. Following Jacob's instructions, he helped grab Kimberly as she stepped out of the bathroom. The time of the crime was determined to be around 2 a.m. on September 30th, 2003. Michael confessed to helping Jacob transfer the body into the trunk of the car, where it was left for several hours. Later, they took the body to a plane in Cheswold, Delaware, and dropped it into the Atlantic Ocean. Michael's testimony matched the clues that police had gathered, including Jacob's flight records. According to authorities, Jacob may have thought Kimberly's disappearance would be considered a typical runaway case. However, he had not anticipated the factors of the ocean. At the height of the plane, when Kimberly's body made contact with the water surface, it was like hitting concrete at over 200 kilometers per hour. This powerful impact shattered the cement blocks, preventing the body from sinking to the ocean floor as intended. Jacob's lack of understanding had inadvertently helped reveal the truth. The Kimberly Holton case shocked the community and left many questions about the true motives behind this brutal act. Why would an outstanding student like Jacob commit such a horrific crime? What was Heather's real role in the case? And were there other secrets yet to be revealed? In November 2004, Michael Keyser faced trial. He was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, receiving a life sentence. Meanwhile, Heather was not charged in connection with this case, although many still suspected the extent of her knowledge about Jacob's plan. The death of Kimberly Holton was not just a personal tragedy, but also a wake-up call about complex issues in the child care and foster care system. It also showed that even young people who seem successful and promising can hide frightening darkness in their souls. This case also highlighted the importance of meticulous and persistent investigation. From restoring fingerprints on a deformed body to tracing the origin of a chain, every small detail played an important role in deciphering this mystery. The combination of advanced forensic techniques, traditional investigation, and public cooperation helped bring the case to a conclusion. However, even when justice has been served, the pain and loss remain. Kimberly's family and friends will forever live with the pain of losing a loved one. The community where the crime occurred also faces difficult questions about safety and trust. The Kimberly Holton case will be remembered for years to come as a reminder of the fragility of life, the mysteries hidden behind normal appearances, and the importance of protecting the most vulnerable in society. It is also a testament to the power of justice and the determination of law enforcement in uncovering the truth, despite facing enormous challenges. As light was finally shed on this case, it left us not just with the story of a terrible crime, but also lessons about the complexity of human nature and the unforeseen consequences of our actions. The Kimberly Holton case will forever be a painful scar in the community's history, but also a powerful warning about the value of truth and justice.